Hello, I'm Karah Womack, Executive Director for Communications and Public Affairs here at Richardson ISD, and today I'm with Bill Gallo of Lake Highlands Freshman Center and Frank Miller of Lake Highlands High School, and they're going to update us on enrollment growth in their feeder pattern. Principals, an advisory group has been working now for several months with the RISD staff about how to best serve the Lake Highlands community amidst growing trends in enrollment. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are with the process?
The process has allowed us to take everything that everybody wants and to put it all together and see how it could all work together. So that process has allowed us to take feedback from the community, from the school, from the students, from teachers, from coaches, from community leaders, and think about what is best for our kids and get to that conclusion that we can do these things and do it together at the same time. And so the process has led us to a point where we have consensus, where we think, yes, we can bring the best of both worlds, where we can have our freshmen and we can have 9 through 12, and we can keep the freshman center together, and we can have seniors over here, and we have freshmen over here, but we can all be under one umbrella together. And so we've kind of got to a point where it became self-evident that we could have the best of both worlds, and then we started moving forward from there.
So can you paint a picture for us? What does this mean for students?
It's going to look the same.
It's going to look very, very much the same. I think we can safely say that next year, we can kind of break this down a little bit, but next year we will have a 9-12 counselor function. So the counselors will have the opportunity then to get to know all their students and then move with that same group of students all the way through from 9th to 12th grade, which is something that is great. I think that's a real benefit, especially with House Bill 5 now and a lot of the intricacies of the graduation plan. I think that's going to allow for a lot of positive of dialogue back and forth too with their counselors.
Right, and that relationship piece, that was one of the keys that we wanted to have, was that relationship. And so to minimize that transition from the freshman center over was to have that relationship piece already in place so that we could bridge those kids over without having to disrupt their learning. And so it helps us to address House Bill 5, but also allows us to address that transition piece. So that's a pretty cool thing. And then also in terms of experience, we'll have a plan laid out of how we're going to integrate the two. It won't just be like we flip a switch and magically we're one. There will be a process and a plan that Mr. Gallo and I will both work with, in which we've already started working on, of how we can bring the two campuses together. But from the student's perspective and the parent's perspective, it'll be a very similar experience. If anything, it will be a much better experience.
It will, and I think with the kids, with the students, right now we share a lot of students back and forth as it is. You know, the students do take classes at Lake Highlands High School. Lake Highlands High School students take classes at Lake Highlands Freshman Center. So it's somewhat of a seamless transition, really, when it comes down to it, because we do a lot of things very similarly. But however, at this point right now, we're having the opportunity to be able to look at some of the things that are redundant, look at some of the things that we can do better, and then eventually become one. However, we're going to keep the traditions of the Lake Highlands Freshman Center and make sure that we embrace what the community wants, and that's what the Freshman Center represents to them.
So talk a little bit more with us about the things that won't change, the things that will remain, like the library and the cafeteria, the fine arts program, etc.
Well, the freshmen will still have lunch at the Freshman Center. We will work with the 4 core classes, meaning math, science, English, social studies, will still be in place at the Freshman Center.
You know, we have a lot of functions that are 9-12 at the Freshman Center and at Lake Highlands High School. Band is one, athletics would be another.
I think it's really important to think about from that perspective that this is an addition, this is not a subtraction. We're adding something to our kids' experience. We're adding more opportunities, more resources, more of everything. I mean, the name of the game is our children, and as long as we do what's right by them, we'll be okay with all the other parts.
I think when you're 2 separate buildings and instead of being one entity, I think it's much more difficult to really have that cohesiveness between the 2 buildings.
Right.
And I think that this allows us the opportunity to really establish that cohesiveness.
Yeah, if you give a more practical example, it's, you know, if that freshman has developed that relationship with that freshman teacher, that relationship does not have to end. The Algebra 1 teacher can still be there and available for that kid to go back and do tutoring with and to work with, and then that math teacher then has the opportunity to reach out and work with the other teachers at the other level, because that wall's not there anymore, you know, and that barrier's not there. And at the same time, the opposite works in reverse. Now we're going to have an opportunity for junior, senior teachers to be able to reach down and offer programs and things like our service league that we'd like men's service league through Excel. If we looked at something like that, here's an opportunity for that senior teacher to start reaching down and developing a pool of people who'd be interested in service and opportunities and things like that. So it allows for two-way movement and communication, where right now we're stuck trying to jump over this wall to get over one to the other. Now we're no longer in isolation.
Thank you, Principals Gallo and Miller. Please continue to check risd.org and your campus's communications for updates on the academic alignment process as we move forward.